Alright, hey guys, this is Rob McConnell,
And I'm Britt Newstead.
and we're going to be showing off Hegemony III, Clash of the Ancients Day. It's the world premiere. So, we've got the game all loaded up here. I'm just going to switch over. So, for the we'll start off with the setting, you guys. So, Hegemony III, we're going back in time to our previous games. This is set in the ancient Italian mainland, starting around 600 BC. So we're going back before Alexander, before Philip, and before Caesar. But it's a really cool time period that lets us bring together both the Romans and the Greeks into a cool sandbox. So you can when you come in here, you can see our strategy map for you guys who aren't familiar with the series. On the strategy map, you got full control of your empire and your units, and you can go right down to the tactical level and check out our new cities. So this is the Etruscan city of Veii, and the Etruscans are one of the big major factions of this time period. I mentioned the Romans and the Greeks earlier. The other major factions you'll be playing as are you got the Etruscans and the Italic factions, so the Samnites and Umbrians. And then we've also got the Celtic factions that come from the north of the map. And so in this time period, basically no one was in control of Greece, or in control of Italy. So you've got a whole bunch of small factions, the Greeks in the south that are all colonies from the Greek mainland, the Romans and Latins in the center. The Etruscans had a big north faction, and a lot of the Gallic ones who had come down from the south and inhabited what was Cisalpine Gaul in our last game. One of the neat things, so players who played Hegemony Rome, you'll recognize this part of the map, which was under Roman control in Caesar's times. But now that we're rewinding back to a couple hundred years BC, this is all still Gallic land. So you'll recognize a lot of places. We've got like Mediolanum here, which was a major Gallic city at the time. And to the north, Comum here. And these are cities you'll find in Rome. And one of the neat things, are really good to make a demonstration here. Actually, one sec. We're gonna be opening up the console a lot today because this is obviously still a work in progress. Showing you, so we're gonna be doing a little few cheats here to show off different parts of the game. So I'm going to snap it out to summertime so you can get a good view of all of our new buildings and some of the new art in the game. So you can see one of the things in this map, players who familiar with old maps, there's a lot more water. So the actual main territory in Italy is relatively small. So what we've done is we've actually enlarged the map 4 times the scale of the previous games. So the amount of territory is actually much bigger. So these two cities, Comum and Mediolanum in Hegemony Rome, were actually within the same screen on the map. You could actually just walk a few units back and forth. So now in Hegemony 3, they're actually quite far apart from each other. And all this extra space gives us more room for battlefield tactics. You can play up the flanking and your battle lines, and gives you a lot more territory to conquer. Alright, thanks. Just going to speak up a little louder here so you can hear me over the music. I'm told it's a bit noisy. I can actually... That's our new title screen we're working on. Little bits and pieces you'll see in here.
It's very much a work in progress.
Britt never likes us showing off stuff she's still working on. But, and while we're saying that, just the state of the game. So most of you guys probably know that we're in the middle of a Kickstarter campaign for Hegemony 3 right now. So the game is in a early alpha stage where we have most of the gameplay and features in there, and we're filling in the content. So the whole map is laid out, and we've got over almost 150 cities. But we're still filling in. You can see when you come into different parts of the terrain, some are more filled in than others. So we've got cities, but we're still filling in parts of the trees, and other areas are more complete. So that's what we're going to be doing. What we're working on our Kickstarter campaign to help us finish and polish it.
I know in Rome we had, I think, over 80,000 trees. But we're going to have quite
Yep.
a few more this time.
All hand placed. But yeah, I think our current count is in 30 or 40,000. But because of that bigger map, there's a lot more to show off. That's one of the big changes players you can recognize from Hegemony Rome. In our cities, we had a lot more detail had a lot of detail in those, but we've taken that to a whole nother level in 3. So you can actually get down and see. You got guys having conversation in the city, and see the laundry hung out to dry, and the troops there. So the cities have really come to life, and this is one of the Etruscan cities, and we've also spent more time building up the different cultures. So we can jump over to Rome. You can see Rome is a much larger city. You can see some of the temples. We've actually tried to model, for those people familiar with the layout of Rome, some of the famous hills that's known for, the Capitoline and the Aquiline. No, unfortunately that is not enabled right now to show all the different factions. Let's talk about there is a faction overlay like we had in the old games, but that was not active at the moment. But zooming down from as I said, the Rome and the Latin cities in the center part of the map, so there's the Samnites and Sabines, and yeah, and going down to the Greek cities down here, so you can see a very different style to the architecture down in the south parts. And one of the fun things about 3 that we're trying to play up is, in addition to the architectural differences, is each faction is going to get a significantly different set of units. So we're trying to focus them on different tactics that are particular to those factions. So the Greeks are more centered on the hoplites and phalanx battles, and so as the game progresses, that's how they specialize. Whereas the Gauls tend to have the size and numbers and speed and flexibility, whereas the Latins and the Roman faction, they evolved from the hoplite warfare of the time, but of course, as you get later in the periods, they developed the legions, which were known for their flexibility and agility on the battlefield, as opposed to the earlier hoplites. So yeah, speaking of the cities, one of the neat new features in 3 is you can now, because this is the first game that we've had that takes place over centuries. In our earlier games, we were focused on one particular, 10 or 20 year period. But we're starting in around 600 BC and covering the centuries it took for either historically for the Roman Empire to capture and consolidate and unify the Italian mainland. But in that period, of course, the cities grew and the population grew enormously. So in this case, our cities, this is a level 1 city, which you can see in the GUI here. And I'm going to cheat here a little bit and show you how we can grow our cities. So I'll build that one up. And you can see, so some of the trees come down. We get a few new buildings here. So there are currently about 12 stages to each city, and those build up over a significant amount of in-game time, and as they grow up, they unlock more recruits, more unit types, and improve the strength of the city. And that's one of the things, gameplay-wise, it's really going to change the balance and stuff, because the resources you need, which are all marked out by these tokens, which players will be familiar with, are wood, gold, and food, are also now used to maintain your cities and grow your empire over the centuries. So you'll have to do a trade-off between you can use your food supplies to feed your army, or are you going to use it to build up to grow your cities and unlock more advanced units and so forth. So it's a really neat angle we're looking forward to demonstrating in 3. It also really helps the long-term balance of the game, because it's one of those, once you move on the outside, the periphery of your empire, you're funding your armies, but in the interior, you want to be growing those cities and providing the recruits to keep your empire growing.
So one of the things about this game is it's going to be a little bit of a different style than Rome. Where Rome was focused around 4 major campaigns, this one is going to be much, much more sandbox. and really let you grow your empire from, in Rome's case, a single city, up to take over the entire Italian peninsula. And I think we were asked if we could talk a little bit about the new tutorial system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the tutorials. Jimmy's always had the built-in objective system, so there's going to be some of that to lead you through it, and then we're also looking at doing some more standalone tutorials outside the scripted sequence, because the game is more focused around the sandbox, which means, you know, we don't know necessarily how it's all going to unfold. We're going to be putting some of the tutorials outside of the main game, but as always inside. Brit's again going to cringe when I show her old GUI and stuff. But we have the in-game help in Pedia to if you'll recognize some of the old Rome graphics we were using for the moment. So all of the information to learn and play the game should be accessible in there as well. Zooming in here to the battlefield, show off. This is one of the new units which we're showing off for the first time today, is the Etruscan Axemen. And so they're a combined ranged and melee unit. They're again one of the things that makes the Etruscans unique. And I have some slinger raiders here. I'll draw quick notes. You can see some of the gray buildings and stuff. These are things we're still placeholders that we're still filling in as we're completing the map. I'm going to switch my guys to a range stance.
We call those white boxes, and they're what we use to set up situations and levels before we actually have all the models complete, and it helps us lay everything out without having to wait for models to come in.
But switching back to a melee stance. Let's take out the slingers quickly, because the slingers don't have an up-close melee attack. So that's where they play out a little differently. So the Etruscans get one of these, a hybrid, the Axemen, who are have particularly strong charge attack, as well as the both ranged and melee. Whereas the slingers and the Gallic units tend to have the numbers and speed. So it's going to affect how the early game, how you use your units a lot. Where the Greeks have the more defensive hoplites. And speaking of which, let's make us some hoplites.
One of the things that they're talking about in chat right now is that the Hegemony Gold remake that was on the stretch goals for the Kickstarter, and why it's so high. Hegemony Gold was actually built on an entirely different engine, so it's unfortunately not just a case of going over to new graphic assets. We would have to rebuild the game basically from scratch inside the new engine. We have heard that it is something that a lot of people want to do, so of course that's why we put it into the stretch goals, and if it's something that you really want, just, you know, spread the word and see if we can get more people out to the Kickstarter.
Yeah, one of the big differences with that map, of course, is the scale. So in the Greece map, the overall size and territory was kind of similar, but the cities, if you remember, were much closer together, much more abstract. So porting it over to the new style and scale is unfortunately not entirely trivial. We actually have to re-landscape the map to fit. And we've significantly changed how the objective system works in those games. So the original Greek in Hegemony Gold, we had a very limited set of objective types, and they were all done in a hard-coded manner, so there was just kill this, capture this. In Rome, we added a new Lua engine that in Rome, we added a whole new Lua engine that supports the objectives. So we'd have to rewrite all of the objectives to fit into that. It does open up a lot of new options for more complex objective types and to recreate specific battles, but it's not trivial, unfortunately. So that's why we had to set the bar up there. Yes, got a note about in the chat about cities shrinking. So yes, the way cities grow, I was showing off some of the effects, and I can do a few more of that while I'm talking here. We'll increase the population a little bit more. The basically, to grow your cities, you need a steady food supply, and so as long as the city is fed, the population will grow at each tier, and the different tiers will unlock more income and more recruits. Alternatively, if you starve out the city, that will basically reverse the process, and so your city can start decreasing levels. I think, do that too here. And alternatively, you can also, if you sack a city, so if you take an enemy city, you can let's see, take it down another. Oh no, I didn't implement that. Right. I'll show you guys in the editor in a few minutes how the city is decreasing. But yes, so they can go both ways. So your cities won't necessarily be growing the entire game. You're going to need to feed them and maintain them and protect them.
So Rob, on chat, someone asks, will the system requirements be much higher than for Rome?
Not particularly. Fortunately, all the graphical improvements in the editor, those things scale really well. So we can have lower LOD unit models and stuff like that. The core mechanics underneath that run how the unit collisions in combat and that kind of stuff is much is more dependent on the processor, and that underlying mechanics hasn't changed as much. So I'm going to capture that for it while we're talking. One of the other new things we've added, so the resource tabs here, which you can see. Did I make myself any workers? I'll just spawn some workers. So this, and I should mention the console while we're in here. This is all accessible to everybody, and is part of the modding framework that you guys can create your own levels and add new units. Create a new worker. There's some of our worker guys. It's the horses and guys, and we'll send them over to the farm. So the farms now can also be upgraded. So we've carried over the upgrade system from forts and cities, so that you'll be able to increase the food production or the capacity, or have a certain protection level to your farms to prevent them from raiding. So the way, one of the neat things one of the opportunities we had in building a whole new game out of this is that we can change the resource balance. So in order to actually build your cities, if you actually build it up to the top level, you'll need more than the farms that are available on the map. So not every city is going to be able to be maxed out. There just isn't enough food available. So you get the choice of whether you're going to be feeding your armies or building your cities, and maxing out all those the resource buildings near you. So I got a question on the forums on the chat about why we chose to go indie with this project, and it's really that's I think we found is the way we work best. We've been an indie developer since, I guess, '98 was the first time we published a game. And that flexibility and agility to move and adapt to the community, we find is best when we can control it ourselves. Obviously, it brings financial challenges and production challenges to getting the game out, which is, of course, why we decided to target Kickstarter. But we think that the improved, how we can respond to the community and direct that it produces the best product in the end. So, well, one of the other things you guys will notice is we've completely updated the GUI, or we're in the process of updating the GUI.
It's almost halfway there.
One of the comments in way back in the early access for Rome, we've tried to take those into account with opening up the screen more, so players will find the GUI is a little bit smaller than it was in Rome, and we also made it a little bit darker, so it's not doesn't draw your attention too much away from the map. Oh, it's raining.
The actual style for the GUI, as someone mentioned in the chat, I think, is Grecian and Etruscan black figure pottery, which is contemporary to the time period that we're looking at, and thankfully they painted a lot of hoplites on their pots, so we have plenty of resources to take a look into that for research purposes. Plus, I just think it looks stunning, but I might be biased.
Well, it's both practical and aesthetic. The simplified drawing style makes it easy to identify units. Yeah, sorry, getting a couple questions here from the chat. But yeah, just to finish off the GUI conversation. The style fits really well with the mechanics because you can identify the unit's profiles really clearly, and it also echoes the time period because the peak of black figure pottery, as Britt was mentioning, falls right in the middle of our time period. One other quick GUI thing, you'll see on the one of the changes we've done is the new resource tokens. The blue bar here actually shows up how full that resource is. So it gives you a little further indication, especially as you'll be upgrading your resources and changing the capacities. You can get a quick glimpse as to how full your resource buildings are. I got one question from the forums as to what kind of units Rome will be starting with. We're starting the game right on the transition between the tribal warfare and early hoplite warfare. Yeah, it's still raining. So the most factions in the game will start with the hoplite variants, as well as basic cheap spearmen, and then some, like the Etruscans, have their axemen as a special unit. The Gauls have slingers. The Romans have a javelineer unit, basically just a throwing spear. And then as you build up your empire to a sufficient level, that's when you'll start unlocking the early Roman legions, so the pre-Marian ones, when you get in the Hastati and the Triarii and those kind of mixed swordsman legions. So, I think we've shown, give a glimpse of the in-game stuff. I think we're going to switch it over and pull up the editor.
Yeah, the editor is really exciting because this is the first time that we're actually going to be providing the editor, the exact same one that we've been using to build the game, to the public for you guys to build your own levels with. A lot of work has gone into this editor. It's been evolving since I started working here, and will probably continue to evolve. But it's getting really good at being able to lay out levels pretty effectively. So we're really excited to be able to show it to you guys for the first time.
So just about got it up here. So yeah, there we go. I'll switch over. One of our designers has left a welcome message in the map here. So our editor is built in a separate mode of the game. So the controls and navigation are all familiar, should be familiar to anybody who's playing it. The main difference, of course, is you can see absolutely everything, so every possible fort. We've mostly been focusing on the Tuscany, Etruscan area, so you'll see a lot of stuff around here. Gives you a sense of just how many resource buildings and forts are on the map. As part of the resource rebalancing of the resources and fort construction that we've been able to do, one of the benefits of making a brand new game with 3. So we can move in. As I said, we've got there's one of the forts. So everything's accessible on the map. You can see all the forts that are invisible until you construct them in the game mode. You can now see them all here in mines. You can see just how many different possible construction sites there are for your forts. And we'll start, so the tools at the top here, these are the different editing modes in the top right. So in the terrain mode, it's a fun one where you get to sculpt the terrain. So I can say I want this hill here. I can make myself some new hills here.
There's a few different ways to sculpt the terrain modes.
Yep.
We have one that sculpts by scale, which you... oh, this is draw, but yeah, one that sculpts by scale, which takes a percentage of how high something already is and continues to build it upwards. One that draws a specific amount of units up from the base, as well as what you saw Rob doing earlier, which is where you can right-click to take a height that's already available and then use that everywhere else, which is really great if you have something that you just want to make a flat plane of, or like he's doing, a very odd valley.
So one of our map, and this is one of the fun things that's actually accessible to everybody who's interested, is we built it up from NASA satellite data, as we have in our past games. So you can import a height field that basically has the general outlines of the hills. One of the things you realize once you start pulling real satellite data is that the world is very flat, relatively speaking, and so we have to scale up a lot of the mountains and hills using those tools that Britt was just describing. But I have a special request here. We'll bring it out of the water. Rising from the water is our duck hill. Yeah, these are the brushes in the bed. Someone else who you could probably guess has another shaped hill here. So there's a lot of no limit to what you can do, and you guys can pull in that satellite data that's publicly available for different parts of the world. We've used, obviously, in the past, the Greece, the modern France, and now Italy. But anywhere you want is accessible there as a starting point, or you can just craft your own terrain out of your imagination. On the next major tool is our terrain painting tool. So this one lets you basically paint the terrain. Again, we can pull up our fun brushes and paint scorpions on the map. And we've got an intelligent, those are the basic planes here, so you recognize the rocks and all that kind of stuff that you can paint around. Getting more interesting is these patterns that you can define in a file outside of the editor, so that you can actually intelligently paint parts of the map. So you can see it automatically picks up the hills and adds some variation. And thankfully, these kind of things make it are a huge assistance to us in painting the enormous size of map we've got.
One of the things that we're being asked on is whether or not this is going to be released on the Steam Early Access. And actually this time we're going with Kickstarter, and we are releasing an alpha build to people who donate that amount on the Kickstarter. But as far as I know, Rob, we aren't at this moment planning Steam Early Access.
No, it's not our plan this time to do early access. We really appreciated everybody's support and that joined in with it in the last time. But we found it was almost a little too big for us, to be honest, that we just couldn't keep up with everybody's the size of that community and starting that way. So we thought we'd try to go back a little smaller with Kickstarter and do a tighter community that lets us balance still getting development done and getting input and feedback from you guys.
The beta build will also be available through a slightly cheaper Kickstarter option. There are options if you want to play the game early,
yeah, the alpha build will. Our target is actually to release that as soon as the Kickstarter ends in beginning of January. So if you really want to get in soon, that's the best option. The beta build will be available. Our target is for a March release, so a little while before that, once all the features are in and we're looking for bugs and play balancing.
Just as a little bit of a life hack, if you're someone who's really interested in the modding side of this game and are looking forward to using the editor, I would almost suggest getting one of the earlier tiers, just because it lets you get a little bit more familiar with it. Oh, this also happens. It is not yet complete. But like I said, it will let you get a little bit more familiar with it, and when stuff like this happens, you can report it to us while we're still developing it, so we can fix bugs before they actually come up and it's released fully.
So I'm just reloading the editor here. As I said at the beginning, this is kind of a early alpha build, so there are surprises.
Yes, with the brushes, there actually is a texture that you can add to, and you can have, you can make your own brushes as much as you want. So
Yep.
you could indeed put lots of
If you prefer
strange
bunnies than
terrain
ducks,
paintings. Yes.
that's perfectly. We do have some more realistic brushes like this where you can, let's see, scale, draw, where you can create slightly more natural hill shapes. Usually everything is more is accented a little better once you draw the do some painting on it. So yeah, the water tools and the terrain tools. So this, one of the changes we in the engine from back from the Greek days is that we can actually have more dynamic water. So you can create your waterfalls or other effects and create your rivers like that. And there are different types of it. For those familiar with Rome, we have the marsh feature where your water levels change, and I can go see where I got one of those. So defining the right it's set up here yet. Defining the water to be a marsh type will actually let it go up and down seasonally. And so, yeah, switching it to a seasonal marsh, yeah, you can see how it changes depending on the season.
Yeah, someone has brought this up a couple of times in the chat, but editing units is not part of this editor. This editor is strictly for the map. At the moment, all of the units that we make are exported individually into the game, but one of our programmers here at Longbow has done up a nice little tutorial on the Steam forums for anybody who's interested in editing their own units into Rome, and I'm sure he will be more than happy to do a more detailed one for Hegemony 3 as well.
Yeah, creating new unit types from existing models is really easy. It's just a text file, and you can define the stats, their various combat abilities, speed and movement and all that kind of thing. We are going to be releasing the our model exporters, but those we've done. Our exporter runs in 3ds Max, so you will require people to have a copy of that. Those are a little less documented, but people are welcome to experiment, and we're always eager to see what the community comes up with. So you can see I'm in the tree mode, and as Brits I think said a while ago, we had about 100,000 trees in the last game, and we're sitting at about 30,000 right now. But yeah, you can basically drop trees down, and you can scale them, really big trees and really tiny trees. And you can also, quick ways to make a forest, you can copy and paste a whole group of trees. And we've got some of these trees you'll recognize in our palette from Rome still, so you can get some of the British trees and the German trees. We've added some new ones based on the Mediterranean climate. We've got grapevine trellises for some of the vineyards and stuff in the game.
One of the really interesting things about doing the research behind the trees, both for Rome and for this game, is that a lot of the trees that you would expect to see in the Italian area especially were actually introduced to Italy several hundred years after our period. So we were very careful to try and take trees that were period appropriate as well as ecologically appropriate. But obviously, unfortunately, we don't necessarily have a perfect list.
Yes, we were actually somewhat disappointed when we were looking into the trees, because things like Tuscany these days is known for sunflowers, and you'll find palm trees throughout Rome, but none of those things existed at the time period. They were all brought in later. I've got a small note about sea combat. Sea combat is definitely, while we're the editor, we can talk about it. One of the could be much more important focus in Hegemony 3. Obviously, we have a lot more coastline, and a lot of that coastline leads directly into the empire of various factions. So we do have plans to revamp the sea rating and a new landing system. The overall basics of sea combat still largely exist in, or consist of ramming and boarding. We also have the new ranged sea units that we introduced, like the British raiding ships in one of the Hegemony DLCs. So that mechanic will be available in 3 as well. And that actually kind of connects me to the pathfinding, which is one of the more technical angles of the game. But you can see where our water navigation, we haven't placed a lot of the water path regions, but these squares here indicate where units can move on the map. So landing areas here where a water and a land region meet, those are the areas where you can to watch out for raiding parties and where the coastal cities connect.
So specifically about the question online about whether or not when we reach the stretch goal, are we going to be changing the naval combat at all to account for Carthage being across the ocean?
Yes, well, if we get the stretch goal, you can see we have Carthage on the map. It's not, right now, it
There's
actually
nothing
almost
there
looks
at the
kind of deserty. It's, yeah, you'll be able to, obviously naval was Carthage's strong point. And we will try to represent as best as possible. Right now, the main core game, we're focusing on the Italian mainland, so raiding to neighboring factions is going to be critical. But if we get the chance to add in the islands, Sicily and Corsica, and Carthage, then naval combat will be even more important.
So one of the other questions on the chat is whether or not if Rome grows large enough, will the Colosseum be built? And the answer is no. And the reason the answer is no is because this time period actually predates even our Rome game, which also predated the Colosseum. The Colosseum was built well into the Empire, I think 170, yep. Don't quote me.
We're roughly targeting about 200 BC as the end game, which was around the time when Rome had historically unified the peninsula. Of course, we're leaving it up to the players as to how long that takes you, or if you do an alt history and conquer with the Etruscans. So that still predates a lot of the most famous buildings in Rome. It is on our wish list to put in a early version of the Circus Maximus. That from descriptions, it was a wood construct at that point in time, rather than the more famous one built later. But otherwise, yeah, not a lot of the famous buildings existed. We have tried to replicate a early version of the Forum between the hills, roughly where it would have been located. And there are some known temples on the capital line hill, but
turns out that emperors were good for something.
Yes, all of the great constructs came a bit later. But yes, and so I had the forest mode. One of the fun modes, and where we spent a lot of the time in the editing so far, is what we call the props. And that's basically how we lay out all of these cities and the farms and resources. So each one of these guys, this is a group of 3 people. I can even open them up. So all of these things were placed by hand by our level designers. And even each of these chickens. So you can have an extra chicken. More chickens. So the prop system is basically where all of that is done. So this giant list here on the side that I'm scrolling through is a list of all the assets that we have in the game right now. Some of them carried over from Rome, most of them completely redone for the new game. And there's ways in the game of, so when I select this whole group comes together. I can paste it over here for demonstration. Oh, triggers the construction when I place a new set of buildings. But even each of these clusters is broken down in individual pieces. So the curbs come apart, and this building and this building. So the variety of combinations are almost endless, and our designers have had a lot of fun building up these cities from all the pieces. And you guys, we really look forward to seeing what the community might come up with.
For those of you that are familiar with Rome, it's quite a bit different from the singular buildings that we were using in the cities before.
That's just one of the architecture
styles. There's been a lot of work. Yes.
If I jump to what I was showing you earlier. Let's go one of these nice coastal ones.
One of the Gallic ones.
So the Gallic ones have a completely different style of architecture and different buildings. So you can see bring up. So these are all various Gallic buildings that are available. Grain shop, houses and sheds and tons of little pieces. And then one of the new things in 3, and I'll go back to one of the cities that's set up like where I started here. This is also where you define how a city is going to grow. So you can see this city is actually maxed out, so it actually looks a little different than what you guys saw in game earlier. But if I drop it down to the beginning, so that's the base level. So where we've got some more trees filling in the space, and you can see as I change the levels here, we can bring in that part of the city comes in, and then a new part in the city back here, and one more level. So basically, as part of that development, you can set which level you want things to come in at. So I can set that watchtower so it's a higher level than what I'm testing right now, or I can bring it back. So it's a neat feedback to see those cities grow as you build up your empire. And most of the other editing modes are, you can change. You can see what the different seasons look like, different light levels, and you can play with that all yourself. Set the colors, and we can make it rain and turn off the rain.
We can see people talking about cough T-Rexes on the chat. Just as a little bit of a plug, don't mind me. Don't forget that there is actually a perk option in the Kickstarter for those of you who have a little bit of money to throw around, where you can actually choose your own Easter egg to be put into the game. And I think Blake would be all too happy if you had him do a T-Rex to hide somewhere in the woods, or indeed a chicken army.
Yeah, I think if you can... oh, there's one of the birds. We got a few... I think there's some deer here, if I remember right. There they are. So yeah, I am sure someone would love to hide a one little T-Rex somewhere on the map. I'll have to set an achievement to find it. So yeah, we're really excited to finally be able to release this editor to the public, because it's, in and of itself, it's a lot of fun to build these worlds together and bring this ancient period to life. It's one of the Etruscan temples. It's built from one of the models you guys may have seen. They don't have, because the Etruscans, their temples were largely built with wood, we don't actually have any remaining buildings to look off of, but there was one good description that everybody has referenced, and so we were lucky to be able to pull from that. And we got some of the Etruscan burial mounds. So these were actually carved out of the ground rather than built up. And Tarquinia here, one of our Tarkna, as the Etruscans called it, has the hill burial caves and the tomb paintings that we were able to pull from. So we're getting close to that's most of the features of the editor. Whether you guys have any more questions?
I believe someone was asking about whether or not the cities will grow the same size, or some will get bigger than others.
Well, that's actually something I'm still debating on as far as the design, as to whether to put caps on some of the cities to enforce some historical similarities. So Rome is going to be bigger than Ostia, its port city, or whether just to allow every city to grow to an equal level. Visually, the maximum is all defined in the editor here, so you can see what the furthest extent is going to be. But I'm not sure yet, and see how the play goes. I did say earlier, with the resource balance, there aren't enough resources on the map to make every city to max them all out. So you are going to have to make some choices between where you want to concentrate your power, where it's ideally probably where it's safer, as well as to how much to dedicate towards your army instead of city growth. But those are what make the drive the interesting strategy.
So we have a question about how much of the map will be playable. For example, in Rome, some of the upper Germanic part and the Spain part were only forests and mountains. One of the things with this map is that right now, the main playable area is Italy itself. From the Alps is pretty much the border on that. You can't go over them in this particular game. Down to the end and as well as Sicily. I believe we were also planning on including Corsica and Sardinia if we have the resources to be able to do that.
Those are on
but
the
it's
wish
a wish list.
Yeah. But there's almost 150 cities in the mainland, and more territory than even the all of the last game. So we're confident, certainly at least to begin with, that there's a ton of map for you guys to explore and conquer.
We'd also love to be able to include more, but as you can see from us running the Kickstarter, it all comes down to what we have the resources to be able to do. We'd love to be able to include Carthage, especially.
Yep, but we specifically designed the map, and it's showing earlier with Carthage. The territory is there, so it really is a matter of laying it out and doing the pathfinding and stuff. But even with all the tools, the map you're seeing so far is the product of thousands of hours of level design.
Yes.
Literally laying out all of these cities and sculpting the terrain and pathfinding stuff. So it's a very involved process.
So one of the other questions was, how will the road system work? Will it have upgrades like in Greece?
At the moment, we don't really have plans for road upgrades. It is something we could consider. Again, going back to the period, this is kind of before the famous Roman roads, or most of them. So at least when they were paved and built as substantially. But it is something we can definitely consider on the wish list. For scale, we've always had the bit of struggle of how you could effectively move an army across roads at the scale of our game. And in Greece, we focused it on the trade side of things. But it is something, again, that's kind of why we're doing Kickstarter, so we can hear from you guys, and hopefully if that's what you guys want and we can get the resources to do it, we're open to it.
How long would it take a unit to march from the tip of Italy to the Alps? A long time.
Yeah. It's really far.
It's quite far. Not as long as it would take them to do it in real life.
Yeah, I wonder how.
I'm not sure that anyone's actually attempted it yet.
It's, as I said, it's misleading the scale, even from players who are familiar with the old game. The map of Rome, if I could unfortunately bring it up here, would fill up this corner of the Hegemony, the Gaul map. So Italy it's literally twice as far or more to go from the tip of Italy to the Alps now than it was to walk across the entire map in Hegemony Rome or Hegemony Gold. So yeah, you'd have hours, many hours, I expect.
So the next question is, how important is the Kickstarter funding to you? Can you realize H3 without it, should it come to that?
Well, that's certainly a question we've thought about. One way or another, we're going to get something out because, as I said, our designers and developers have put in thousands of hours towards this, and we want to make sure, we want to see that get out there. How it will happen, we're not quite sure yet, and in what state really depends on whether we can make this this Kickstarter. So as I said, there's a lot of, we'd like to, some of those new features. There's more territory we'd like to do. There's more units we'd like to do, and if we can't make our Kickstarter, that might not happen. But we'll try.
Okay, I think that's it for the questions. Oh wait, someone suggests maybe make a speed up feature for those long journeys.
Yeah, we've looked into that. The difficulty with the speed up function is there's so much going on in the game. Speeding it up means we have to simulate it even faster. So when you've got armies battling out in one corner of the map while you're marching somewhere, speeding it up takes a lot more processing time to accurately model that battle faster. So, which is hard to pull off on some people's machines. So we try to avoid any mechanics that are won't run well or too dependent on a specific machine. However, that is one aspect of getting water access, because while it would take a very long time to march, building ships you can move much faster to get to one end of the map or the other. So we'll put more importance on the naval aspects of the game.
Okay, I think that's it for the questions that are currently on the chat. If anybody has any more questions, now would be the time, because I think we're just about wrapping up. Rob, what do you think?
Yeah, I think we've gone over most of it, and I said we're around. You can contact us on the forums or email if things come up later. And we're happy to answer questions from you guys. We've kind of talked about the Kickstarter there right now, but just to draw a little more to it at the end. The Kickstarter runs to January 8th, and we really need you guys' support to make this game the what I think we want to, and what I think you guys would like to. And so check out some of those perks. We've got some really neat ones. There's the create your own general. So one of the fun things about having so much more detail in the game is we can actually put you right in the game. You can have general with your face on it. And one of those neat portraits that Britt has drawn for us on the Kickstarter page, as well as a cool new one to design your own mercenary. So the new mercenary mechanic that we added to Rome, where we can bring in some more diverse units from around the map. If you guys want to contribute some ideas to that, that would be awesome. And Britt's working on a neat art book that she's going to put together.
We're going to be putting together a little art book on the art of hegemony as it's gone through the many stages, and I'm hoping to sneak in a few brand new paintings into it, which should be fun. And it's available on PDF for quite a bunch of the perks, I believe, as well as a printed version in one of the higher perks. We have a couple other questions, so I'm just going to grab those now before we end. Can you change the color of the stone or clay tiles in the editor?
Yes, you can. You can see this is actually a little mismatched here at the moment. Oops. The plus key, I can change. Basically, anything can have a skin on it. So So we've got 3 different skins for this particular tile. So the gray one that you see, there's the more orangey one, or the gray one. So all of these buildings actually have a multiple and optional skin. So you can. I will set. So there, just change the skin for all of those. That's actually for those ones, and I can change the skin of the rock to match a little more. So yeah, and those kind of buildings can all be are all editable externally, so you guys can add textures, change them around, add different skins. The editor is quite flexible in that for those kind of things.
We do have some comments here. Last time when we were going out with Rome, we also went out with the publisher's marketing division behind us. This time, it's just us. So if you guys want to spread the word about the Kickstarter, we will be enormously grateful. You have no idea. Even if you can't afford to jump in it yourselves, any kind of word on the street is good for us.
We do really appreciate it.
Yes, and we really, really appreciate it. Okay, so I think that's it for today. Thank you guys so much for coming. You have no idea. We're so happy to be able to show the game off and the editor and get some feedback. Don't forget to send us any comments, critiques, questions if you got them. We're more than happy to answer them.
Yeah, most of us are on Twitter, and we've got a Facebook page. You can follow our development. We're going to keep, as the next few more weeks of Kickstarter, we're going to be doing some more videos and showing off some more stuff, and you can see the progress of the game as it pulls together. And yeah, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.
Bye, guys.
See ya.